And the next, and these are the classes. The top three or more that, because there's going to be young people coming with all kinds of different backgrounds, they need to make sure they have a solid foundation in their own lives. So that's what those top three classes are about. That they really know who Jesus is in their lives. That they know what they're being discipled by Him. So, you know, Jesus is discipling His people now. Even though He's not physically here, He disciples us through the Word, through prayer, through fellowship, through identifying with His cause and His purpose on the earth. And through things like that. So we learn about that. And then the integrity of the Bible. A lot of people don't know, they grow up with it and they just assume, but you need to know why the Scriptures really are the authentic Word of God. They're not just, it's not just, well, I happen to be in this faith, so this is what I believe. Whether it's true or not, I believe it. No, you know what? If the Bible wasn't true, I wouldn't be a Christian. I came to Christ because He was true. And you know what? I'm just going to make a confession to you. When I came to Christ, it wasn't like I was looking for peace at the time. I was 24 years old. I loved the world. I loved my life. I loved to sin. Okay, I'm just being honest. It says there's pleasure. Sin has pleasure for a season. I was still in that season. And so I wasn't like desperate and, you know, if I don't receive Christ, I'm going to, you know, commit suicide. I wasn't there. But the truth got me. I finally came to a place where I had to admit it was true. And then I was under deep conviction of that I needed to get right with God, that I was not a good person. My heart wasn't good. There was something wrong with me. So it was those things that brought me to Christ. But you need to know that the Scriptures stand up. They are the authentic version of God's message to humanity. Yes, He speaks in many different ways and He speaks in many cultures, but this is the direct revelation, and it's proven out in thousands of different ways, and we look at that in this class. And then the bottom three are more in the reach out part of it, the neighboring faiths that we survey, urban missions, and special needs awareness and action. I'll show you what that is. Let's go to the next slides. This is like briefly in each class. For time's sake, I'm not going to really go there, but it's about Jesus Christ, okay? And we'll get into this more later. Class number 2 is discipleship. It's about getting equipped. Class 3, integrity of the Scriptures, like I just mentioned. Class 4, the neighboring faiths. We survey these different faiths, as well as relativism and atheism. And the next class, urban missions. This is where people that can really be trained in running these centers. They can go back home to Los Angeles or to Kansas City, and they can think about what they can do in their home communities, unless God calls them here for long term. And the next one, special needs awareness and action. We study current events related to our persecuted brethren, human trafficking, and other oppressive situations. We then work together in planning for the most effective and practical action that we can take. And so that's the class aspect of it. So let's go to the next slide. The service aspect is what we learn in the classroom, we apply in the field. Consequently, our interns help operate various outreach centers, friendship centers for immigrants. See, we're going to team up with ones that are already existing, such as Larry Holcomb with Urban Impact, which I've always done but have not been doing lately. And then our sister Fadia. And then we're probably going to start one right here in Lafrac. See, this is when we have the people to do it. You know, the manpower to do it. And then we're going to partner with the ministry Global Gates, dedicated to church planting amongst unreached people groups in New York City. And then we're going to try to turn our VBS into a year-round program. Again, don't be scared. We're going to have the manpower to do this. And we'll work it out. Okay? And our youth program, our youth programs is going to be mainly through Thug Exposed, working with at-risk youth. And then community service programs. Let's just do different things that come up that we can serve our community, especially here in Lafrac. Street outreach teams. Ministries to the oppressed. Okay? And I would say that Congo Relief and other ministries like that are included here. So we're going to have, you know, the manpower. Now when the interns come, it's not like they're going to be involved in every one of these things. Somebody might come and their main burden is children. you know, they might touch on these other ones, but that'll be their major. Others might come and they might really want to work with ministries like Congo Relief or Thug Exposed. And so you know, this is a work in progress. So I told everyone out there, I was being transparent. I said, look, it's not like you're going to come and there's a big facility waiting for you and it's like some dormitory or something like that. This is going to be missionary, pioneering work. And you're going to help me get this thing going and get it really operating in a proper way. And let's go to the next one. Friendship centers, okay, we've talked a lot about that already, but it's just where we have these centers where we assist in English, legal issues, any other special needs that arise, and host special events for many holidays. That's what we do with Urban Impact. Thanksgiving, Christmas, you go to their homes, or you have a big event, Thanksgiving, and you use it to really share the good news. And the next slide. The little picture here of, this is our ESL at the West African. So those are Fulani. I know all these guys. They're beautiful guys. And then there's Christy, of course. And Christy's a great example of how I think the internship will work. She came here on a short-term 1-week trip. Then she was so touched with it, and she already had mission in her heart. She had already done mission work in the Ivory Coast. So right as soon as she got an opportunity, she'd come back here for a week on her own, alone. And then she'd come back more. And then she moved here. And then she became like really the greatest worker that I've been around with all of this, with serving Urban Impact and then serving a lot of the things I was involved with even here in this church. And then she launched out to the Ivory Coast. Now she's getting married to a guy from there. Well, she might be back this summer. And if she is, she's a major answer to prayer. She'll help me in so many ways. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. And then, you know, this is a result of a prayer walk we did in Little India, and we were praying for all the people groups. I had this team from Phoenix. They were all girls, and we were praying, and then I said, we forgot to pray for the Sikhs. And we're praying for the Sikhs, and I walked up to the gentleman with the uniform on, the American flags, Harry, and I just said, excuse me, we are, well, these are Christians from Arizona, and we wanted to just know more about the Sikh people. And he said, that's funny, I've been wanting to know more about the Bible. And I said, well, you and I are going to have to do coffee. And he said, well, you're my guest right now. And he took us across the street to a little restaurant where his family, those are his parents to the right there, and then other people, and they fed us, and they refused to let us pay, and they made us bring back the other 8, so all 16 of us came back the next night. And we really made these dear friends. It's incredible if you just make yourself available. And let's go to the next slide. And then, of course, Global Gate, Craig and Jerry are deeply involved in. Craig's the head prayer coordinator of that. And this is Chris Clayman, which we're going to have him come to the church and share. But the interns will help him in any way that what they're doing in planting churches amongst unreached people groups in New York City. We want to partner with this ministry and serve in whatever ways that we can make a difference. In the next slide. There's us right there. But it was just an example. See, other churches in California, I said, this is a little church that I'm pastoring. And in this little picture there was 13 different flags representing 13 different nations. I said, that's, and then we live in a apartment complex where the people are from all those countries that are there. And here the nations are really at our doorstep. And it's just fantastic what God is doing and what He wants to do through these opportunities. Next slide. And then, is that the next slide? Did I do that twice? 21, 22, 23. Yeah, there we go. That's a Hindu festival every year here in New York. And it's where they paint their faces color, and they have color for everything. But it's just an example that we have people, groups from all over the world here that we need to engage and really get to know. Next slide. Children's ministry want to positively impact their development by building relationships with them and their families throughout the year, year after year. Outreach Expressions, Summer VBS, After School Kids Club, and Sunday School Mania, which will be a new thing that we would do. We might even have it where we have a special service here after our normal service just for kids. Okay? That it would be, the goal is that we want to be involved in these children's lives in their growing up and their families. And so this is the way to do it. We called up all of the kids' parents that participated in the VBS. Jerry, my sister, did. And what did the parents, what was the general response that you got?
It was all very positive. They all said our kid still talks about it. I had about 3 different ones that said my son still talks about it.
Yeah.
And so it was all positive. And they said if we ever have anything like that in the future, please let them know. So.
See, we want to really be there for kids, especially kids that maybe need that extra attention. Maybe that they're not getting it. So this is just such a great way to be involved in their upbringing, which I believe we have just like one generation shall make the great deeds of the Lord known to the next generation. Let's go to the next slide. This was just in our summertime. That was Brother Jeremy from California. He's in Boston now. By the way, Jacob sends his love, and Chris Evans. But this was just a great, this is really for picture for about in California, that they would just see what some of these things are about, get a visual of them. And go to the next slide. Of course, Matthew 19:13-15, then little children were brought to him, brought to Jesus, that he might put his hands on them and pray. But the disciples rebuked them, as oftentimes we get to be adults that we like to do. Get the children out of there, they're distracting, they're messing up the meeting, they're messing up these important things. But then Jesus said, wait a minute, hold on. Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid his hands on them and departed from there. He really set that example of the hearts that we are to have for children. As we see children, we need to see that that's the kind of faith that we need to have unto the Lord, the way that we see just that comes naturally in children's spirits. The next slide. Now the at-risk youth, we've talked about that, and that's coming alongside ministry like Thug Exposed, and to give them alternative activities that can influence them toward an alternative life to thug mentality. We partner with Thug Exposed in an in-house ministry who specialize in reaching them through spiritual mentoring, tutoring, career guidance, positive creative outlets, sports activities, community work projects, and building long-term relationships. Next slide. This is so, really, we need to stay close to scriptures like this, realities like this. James is speaking, and he said, if anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless. Pure and undefiled religion, what is it? He said, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, to keep oneself unspotted from the world. And really, many children that we want to reach out to, we want to really find those ones that are fatherless. And we need to be their fathers. We want to find the ones that are maybe being neglected at home, be their mothers, be their big sisters, their big brothers. That's pure religion. Today, it's just a word change, but people use religion's a bad word today. I'm not into religion, I'm into Jesus, And we get it. I understand what they're talking about. But in the scriptures, there is a pure and undefiled religion that's good, and this is what it is. And this is like Isaiah 58, extending your souls to the oppressed. Next slide. And with youth. And here's something else to remember. With youth, a lot of times it's easy for society to just complain about troubled youth. At-risk youth, complain about them. They're causing all the crime. These kids today, they don't know any better. You see them on the subway, they're screaming and they're dangerous. And kids today are rotten, and you hear people saying that all the time. And then don't do anything about it. Don't realize that, what, Mr. or Mrs., if you grew up like them, you might be way worse than them.